What's going on, y'all? Thanks for checking in the Khaliis Take. You know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button. Also hit that notification bell just so you can get the newest and the bonus content first. But hey, let's just go ahead and jump right in. You know, at this point, I would say the Clippers are just losing at a bad time. It's at the end of the season. It's the part of the season where you're supposed to be playing your best basketball going into the playoffs. And the Clippers, I feel like they're just losing a little bit of their momentum, a little bit of their edge, and a little bit of their drive that helped them, win a lot of games these last several months when nobody thought they could. But now it's like when you look at some of their bad habits are starting to show. And I know it's a make or miss league. You can always point to that, but at the same time, you got to make shots, and you got to make more shots than what you miss. And that's what it's all about. There's no other way to look at it, no other way to really put it, and no other way to really think of it. Right now, the Clippers have to find a way to at least finish out the season, pretty strong as much as they can, because every team wants to finish the season with a winning record. I mean, that should be the goal every time you play, every time you step on the floor in a season. You want to finish the season with a winning record and, feel like you went into the season for a purpose. Now, we understand the Clippers have been undermanned and they haven't had their star players, but really that's no excuse for them now because they've won so many games without Kawhi and PG. It's almost as if they're additional players to add to what they already have to make them better. It's not like they need them to really help them make the playoffs, because obviously they're good enough to be a playoff team the way they played the last couple of months, even without their star players, and how much they've impressed everybody by playing without their star players. So we can't really look at that too much now in its entirety. You got to find ways to win. And right now the Clippers aren't doing that. Looking at their games and how they're letting things slide on defense, and they're not playing defense to the level that they were, and they're not playing with the same energy, seem like, it's starting to really, rub off in a bad way. And I don't know if a lot of Clippers fans are noticing it or anything like that, but, they have to find a way to break that chain, because if you want to be a winner, if you want to win, you got to win. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, a lot of people may not agree with me, but at the end of the season is when you want to be playing your best basketball. And matter of fact, at the end of the season is when you want to be playing your best at any sport, because it gives you momentum and confidence and drive and the thought and the mental of going into a bigger atmosphere like the playoffs with confidence. Like, okay, we can beat anybody because, we finished the season on a high note. We're riding on a high right now, and the high is still continuing. So let's continue it by going out here and executing and playing the way we've been doing, all throughout the season, and how we ended the season on a good note. Things like that go a long way. It's called intangibles. Little things like that always go a long way with a team. You've seen teams in sports. If you watch sports a long time, you've seen teams in sports win 5 or 6 straight and then go into the playoffs and run the table. I mean, we saw it even in football one time with the New York Giants when they won the championship. They was like a wild card team. Just to give you an example, they was a wild card team going into the playoffs, and they barely made the playoffs, but they won a few games in a row going to the playoffs. And once they got into the wild card, they went from the wild card all the way to the Super Bowl and won it. This is what I'm saying. Same thing in sports. Same thing in basketball. Same thing in any sport. You want to be winning you want to lead the season on a winning streak and end the season on a high note as much as you can, to have a winning record before you leave the season, so you can take positivity out of it. It's hard to take positivity out of a season when you finish the season badly. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. If that's the notion, then finishing the season is something that the Clippers should want to do in a high note rather than in a low note, the way they're doing. And some of these games that they lost their last 4, I believe, or 5 out of their last 6. They definitely could have won some of those games. And like I said, it's really bad because I think the Clippers need to win some of those games, because it would have made last night's game against the Denver Nuggets more valuable in regards to they could have been playing for that 6th seed, that final, playoff spot, instead of actually just being content with going into the play-in tournament, which anything can happen in that, because that's basically one game elimination, 1 or 2 game elimination. You see what I'm saying? That's not a 7-game series. See what I'm saying? So anything can happen in situations like that, which is the reason why I felt like the Clippers were wrong for taking their foot off the gas the way they did. Ty Lue rested players and things like that. I know it was that Cleveland game, like I said last week, he rested Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris on that Cleveland game, and they lost that game. And ever since they lost that game, they really haven't won a game since, I don't believe. They might have won one in between, but they really haven't played the way they were supposed to since that game. And I don't know what it is, but I feel like when they took their foot off the gas, it took away a lot of their momentum. And this is the things that you can't allow to happen. Ty Lue is a really good coach, but Ty Lue is also a stubborn coach as well at times. He goes with his thought process and what he thinks and how he feels everything should go. And that could be good to a degree, but it could be good to a fault, because like I said, there's no need to rest Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris a week and a half ago. I mean, not unless they said they were hurt, but Reggie Jackson came out and said that he wanted to play that game. So it's like, throwing off that momentum like that is not good. See, when you throw off the momentum of a role player, it makes a difference rather than throwing off the momentum of a superstar player. Now, if you rested a Kawhi Leonard, somebody like that, he would have came back with a vengeance. He would have came back and won at least 2 out of 3 of these games on his own, because he's a superstar player. Reggie Jackson's not a superstar player. Role players, you have to keep them going. You have to keep their momentum going, because it takes more for them to get or to play at that level than it does a superstar type player. Superstar type player can just do it naturally. And this is where I thought that Ty Lue messed up at, by letting them sit out that game and blowing their momentum, because as you see, they haven't really won a game since. I mean, they might have won one in between, maybe, I think. But I mean, 1 out of the last 6 is not good, especially when you're leaving the season's about to go away and go into the playoffs, and you want to be playing the best basketball you can on a high note, you know what I'm saying? So when you go into the playoffs, it gives you more confidence to play whoever your opponent is, because now you're playing for higher stakes. It's do or die. It's no such thing as, oh, well, we'll live tomorrow, see another day, and another day after that, another day after that, another day after that. There's no such thing when you go into play-in tournament playoffs. It's all about being eliminated. So if that's the case, then you want to be playing your best basketball. I think that's where the huge mess up was, by letting those players rest. And like I said, ever since that Cleveland game last week, a week and a half ago, the Clippers really haven't been playing nowhere near how they were a week prior to that. You know what I'm saying? Them sweeping the Lakers in four straight games, that game and stuff like that. So, momentum is everything. And you definitely need it on your side, especially if you're a team like the Clippers, who are undermanned and not knowing whether Kawhi and PG or PG and Kawhi is going to come back. If you don't know they're coming back, if you're uncertain, if you're unsure and all these things, you got to play your best basketball as possible. You got to work with who you have on the floor. And that's just the way it is. And Ty Lue's been around long enough to know that. I just think that was a mistake of his. And I feel like it's coming back to hurt them a little bit. But I mean, not much. It's not hurting them a lot. But I just feel like, when you're losing the way the Clippers are, and you're losing games the way they're losing some of these games, it makes you worry going into the play-in tournament if they don't have Kawhi or PG, because it's like now, okay, the momentum they had that they were playing with, where's it went? It's like it evaporated almost. So it's like, to me, you don't take that chance. You keep letting them play on as much as they can. I personally thought the Clippers, like I said about almost 2 weeks ago now, they should have just kept playing hard to try to fight for that 6th seed, because it would have been so much better, because there was only 5 games there was only 4 games out of it at that time. 4 games? That's that's ample enough time to go out there and string together a few wins and try to take that 6th seed, because, Denver's going to lose some games. Denver is going to lose some games along the way too. That would have made last night's matchup even more intense, because it would have been, who can win last night's game and who possibly can get that 6th seed. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, I feel like the Clippers and Ty Lue kind of gave up on that thought process when they really shouldn't have. And things like that, intangibles, little things like that, come back to bite you sometime. As I gave you the example before, last year it almost came back to bite them. They took games off. They rested Kawhi Leonard, all of them. And which was good, because they needed rest. I get all that, but I feel like he rested them too early last year. They actually fell down a spot to face Dallas when they could have been the 3rd seed last year, never faced Dallas. Would have went in with more of a different mentality, because they went in and played Dallas and they took them lightly. And Dallas almost knocked them off and embarrassed them on national TV in the NBA world, because if Dallas would have won that series last year, if Kawhi Leonard didn't turn into the basketball god that he is, That would have been the most embarrassing. That loss last year against Dallas would have been worse than the one they had against Denver, because that would have been the first round against one superstar who's in his second year, and he's still trying to get his footing in the NBA, really, and he's beating two superstar players in Kawhi and PG, who are supposed to be the best perimeter defenders in the league. So Kawhi Leonard really saved the Clippers' legacy, or bacon, or whatever you want to call it. He saved the day for the Clippers, because if they would have lost that one, it would have really been over for the Clippers. I mean, truly over for them. So, I mean, this is what I'm saying. You got to stop making mistakes and doing dumb things like that. Keep the momentum going. Don't sit people out. These guys are not superstars. They're role players. They need all the play they can get and all the momentum they can have going into the playoffs, because you don't know whether Kawhi and PG are coming back. And you're uncertain about Norman Powell as well. He's more of a likely to come back rather than Kawhi and PG. And they say PG is more likely to come back than Kawhi, or at least sooner than Kawhi. So it's all probability, though. With probability being set, you need to do things the best way you can if you're not for sure, or you're not for certain what's going to pan out. Now, you got to hope that the Clippers rebound from this, at least win a few games before the season's out, maybe 3 or 4 games, whatever the case may be. Win a few games before the season's out, get some momentum going again, and take it into the play-in tournament and see what you can do. And hopefully you don't get knocked off and don't even have an opportunity to even get to like the playoffs, where you can play in a 7-game series and give yourself a chance to win. But hey, that's my take on everything. Leave any comments in the comment section as always. And hey, Cali out.